Has anyone heard about the Studio Ghibli film Howl's Moving Castle? Well, if you haven't heard about it yet, it's basically the story of a young girl named Sophie who, after being turned into an old woman by a witch, finds the moving castle owned by a man named Howl, and soon they get caught into a giant war. I liked the movie so much that then something horrible happened that made me swore off the film my entire life. You want to know about what happened? Well, here it is. It all began when I was visiting the Studio Ghibli Museum in Tokyo, Japan. I went there and it was great work of art. There were concept art for movies like My Neighbor Totoro, Princess Mononoke, and many more. But when I got to the other room, my hand was grabbed by someone and he shoved me into a chair and told me to watch something. That something turned out to be the original version of one of the scenes from Howl's Moving Castle. He told me to watch it and said if I finished watching it, then he'll let me go. He turned on the TV and told me to watch his masterpiece. The person's masterpiece was a scene taken from the movie, and the scene was when Howl gets angry at Sophie because apparently she mixed up his hair products, causing Howl to dye his hair orange. Instead of the normal scene, it turned out it was actually more disturbing than I ever imagined. The TV opened up and then faded in. The scene opened normally with Howl running out of the bathroom. Steam coming out of his hair was orange, and then he went downstairs and started yelling at Sophie. The strangest thing was that Howl started yelling in a very angry tone, like if his English voice actor was caught in an argument. I was more horrified to hear Howl constantly swearing at Sophie, like a sailor who just stubbed his toe. Howl went over to the table and began smashing the table as if he were the Hulk. The camera then cuts to show Howl's face. It was red, with grinding teeth, and his eyes were completely bloodshot. He started throwing his things at Sophie, but Sophie managed to dodge all the things Howl thrown at her. "I'll make you regret this the day you met me!" Howl screamed. Then Howl roared, causing all the windows and everything in the castle to break and shatter. The weirdest part was that the same Tyrannosaurus Rex roar in the Jurassic Park movies, Sophie, Markle, and Calcifer were all scared. Howl became even angry and deranged and psycho, all because of his hair being dyed orange. Then Howl changed at Sophie and Mark, who were backing away. The camera then cuts to the outside of the castle, where screams of pain and the sound of flesh being ripped open and torn apart were heard. Outside, the turned-up scarecrow was looking at the castle as it moves. The camera then cuts back to the interior of the castle. Everything was covered in blood. On the floor, there were the bodies of Sophie and Mark. Howl was drenched in blood, with his hair in reddish tint to it. Howl was breathing heavily as the camera zooms in on Howl's face. Howl began to smile sarcastically as the screen then faded to black, and then the scene ended. After the TV screen cut to black, the guy asked me if I liked it or not. Without saying a word, I stood up and went out of the museum. I was more horrified and speechless. I walked to my apartment. I don't know what to say after that. Why would someone make a disturbing scene of what seems to be a normal scene of Howl throws an angry fit over his hair being dyed orange, and change it to Howl literally killing Sophie and Mark off the scene? I decided just to go to bed after that. And that, my little pretties, was Howl's Moving Castle, the original version of Howl's angry hair dye tantrum. I guess you could say, Howl's Moving Castle creepypasta written by Affan Jamsari. Affan Jamsari, thank you so much for writing this story. Thank you so much for, letting me read this story. So, with that being said, I'm going to get to it. This story was not bad. It was a decent story. I'm gonna be honest. This was actually a pretty decent story. Probably not the best story right here on, Affan Jamsari's page on Goshia I've seen so far. But I could definitely say that this story actually was pretty good. But I do have some negatives that I do have to say about this. Now, for one thing, I could definitely say I like the concept of itself of, somebody being in a Studio Ghibli museum and then gets pulled in to watch something. I definitely have to say that, not every, creepypasta has, a startup of, watching this clip or something at a museum or anything like that. I definitely have to say, I do plan to go to a Studio Ghibli museum maybe someday if I ever go to Japan. Which I probably might do that maybe someday. Not really sure though. But I definitely have to say that the scene itself actually was interesting. But I do have some problems with it. Now, one thing, there were a few times where Sophie's name was not capitalized, like the S has to be capitalized for her name, which there were a couple of times where that happened. Same with Howl's move. Howl's name has to be capitalized, while the H has to. Marco's name, the M has to be capitalized. And to be completely honest, there were a few grammatical errors in this story that kind of really, throw me off a bit. Not entirely, but still. I definitely have to say, the bloodshot eyes in this story, that's cliched. Like, that's a cliche in the story. Like, you don't add bloodshot eyes in a creepypasta unless there's a big reason as to why that's the case. Unfortunately, it didn't explain that in the story. Like, look, if the bloodshot eyes or anything like that does not work in the story, then don't include it in the story, because it obviously just doesn't work that way. That's just me, though, but I don't know. Now, another thing I could definitely say was that, why would Howl look, I can understand Howl having a tantrum over the fact that, he, because his hair was dyed orange, but to him sit there and kill Sophie and Marco, like, what? Why would he even sit there and go that far? Maybe go as far as maybe start throwing stuff all over the place. That's one thing I could definitely say that's believable, but come on, like, Howl will not sit there and, start, throwing, I guess you could say, killing everybody in the sight. Like, why would that be the case? There's, no reason of Howl to sit there and do that. That's just, I don't know. Maybe that may be just me, but I don't really know. Like, look, if you're gonna add a cliche in the story, you gotta make it into something that would be completely original. Like, of course, it would be, one thing, but this is just, I don't know, people. I just really don't know, to be completely honest. And then the ending was just, the ending was alright. It might not be the best thing I've seen, but I could definitely say, here's the thing I'm definitely have to say, the story actually, it was decent, I'm not gonna lie. But I did have some problems with the story, and that's mainly the main issue with the story. I did have some problems regarding the story, but other than that, the story was actually pretty decent for what it is. It may not be perfect, but it actually provided something. So I'm definitely saying that now. It's not perfect, but it's actually a pretty good story for what it is. But although this story may not be the best one I've read, but it's still a pretty good one. So I guess that's just all I have to say. Now, I definitely have to say the grammar was decent. I'm not gonna lie. The grammar was decent, although it could be worked on a little more. Same with the sentence structuring, and there were a few things wrong with the story I really just didn't really care for or anything like that. But other than that, the story was actually decent. Maybe not the best story, but it's still a pretty decent pasta. So I guess that's just all I have to say. Like I'm gonna say right now, this is just simply my own personal opinion, and if you happen to disagree with me, that's fine too. We're all entitled to our own opinions regards to these, creepypastas, and this is simply my own personal thoughts. My final rating of this story would have to be I'm gonna give this one a 6 out of 10. It was a decent story at that. It was not, cliched madness or anything like that. I did like how the concept went out, but the fact that Howl sat there and, killed Sophie and Marco, it just didn't really make sense. That's the only thing I'm going to say. It didn't make sense. There was no reason of Howl to sit there and do that. I know Howl wouldn't do that, but that's just my opinion. Another thing I could definitely mention is that I just didn't like the fact that, I guess maybe just the ending could be maybe explained a little better or maybe extended a bit. But other than that, the story was actually pretty decent. Maybe not the best story I've seen, but it's actually a pretty decent story. So anyways, with that being the case, or that being said, what did you guys think about this creepypasta? Did you all enjoy it? Did you not? Also, what would you have done person to help make this story a lot better? Leave me know what your thoughts are down in the comment section down below. I'm the Queen of Lions. Thank you so much for watching today's episode, and if you happen to be brand new here on this channel, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe because I make brand new videos every single day. Don't forget to ring the notification bell when I upload so that you guys will not miss an upload. And as always, please roll the outro because I'm out.